So I think one of the keys is having a trusted relationship first between the chair and the CEO. And in my case with Elise, it is one of the most, and I think she'd say the same thing, one of the most meaningful relationships I've certainly ever had and she's had in terms of working together. And that doesn't mean once in a while that I may or she may have some things to say that are not positive, but it's always in the spirit. There's no self-agenda. It's always in the spirit of working together and also advancing the organization. Secondly, we think, fortunately for us, we kind of think alike. And I don't know if it's, I've often wondered if it's female. Consequence, they have something to say. They have a point of view. So as I always say to them, this is the good news, bad news. I have an engaged board is the good news. I have an engaged board, the bad news. Because it is managing cats sometimes. But I think it's my job to help Elise in terms of communicating with the board and getting ahead of, if we have an issue, we've learned either I or some of the people on the executive committee call several of the people on the board ahead of time to give them a heads up before we get to the board meeting. Because when we get to the board meeting, here's this issue coming up. They're completely caught off guard. They haven't been brought up to speed. And we educating where we could get a lot more done, and we found that to be very positive. The other thing I would say,
where people really see the cause, and understanding that the staff changes to support that would be necessary, and then identifying how their involvement was going to have to step up, to be quite frank. If we're going to do great things, the board's going to need to help raise great money. And I think that was something that was more complacent, and to not so much they didn't believe, but getting them passionate again about how they can make a difference and making their time worthwhile. So I think I had to really make a conscious effort in identifying how much we really needed them and how much we needed more like them, and to really look at this as a partnership. And for me, that was the first step. And then managing the staff to support that and to deliver on those promises was also where I put a lot of stress on making this happen as fast as I possibly could, because the needs, to me, were just could be overwhelming. But anyway, I treasure the time and just did not want to waste that. And then through that, trust was developed. And then it just kind of rolls. When you're all looking at the same, not end zone, but you're looking at the same goal, and you're working together and bringing out each other's strengths and celebrating those, it's a fabulous experience.
And I'd like to do a follow-up, which is, you talked about trying to make change happen as fast as possible, but those of us on the West Coast who've been in therapy may have heard, the phrase, you have to allow time for change. That's obviously a tension. What would you say about that?
I realize that I need to allow time for people to catch up with my vision. I just wanted everything to be done immediately. I said, oh, this needs to be fixed. Let's get back to the basics. We need to do this, we need to do that. And the needs list was getting just overwhelming. And then my board chair, thank God, he was like, Ann, we didn't know this stuff before you got here, so we still don't know it unless you tell us. So don't worry about it. You don't have to do everything the first week. I was like, okay. But that sense of urgency did not leave for the first 12, 15 months. I thought, okay, this is taking way too long. And I realized that if I didn't move, then I would forget how urgent it was. And then I would lose my volunteers. So I realized it doesn't have to be that fast, and allow people to kind of catch up with me, for some, was the best way to get them engaged. The others who were already there, I would just use them more often. But there.
You want to answer one of those, or would you like a fresh one?
Actually, I'd like to tell my story about the board, because I think for those of you who are serving on nonprofit boards, it might be illustrative. I actually took the job because of the board, and I knew that board kind of because I was a relatively new member of the board, actually a backbencher, and had been on the board for less than a year when I was recruited into this position. And I completely bought into a strategic planning effort that the board had led, which led to new vision, new mission, and I watched the board leaders put up serious planning money. So I thought, wow, I believe in this mission and vision, which I helped write. And I respect the fact that they've got, skin in the game. And that, it seems to me, and when I took the job, I said, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not just going to be CEO, I'm going to be a member of the board. That was really, really important to me. And so everything that I have learned while serving on foundation boards or nonprofit boards or corporate boards really enables me to put myself in the shoes of board members and understand that they only dip in and out quarterly, and that you need to say at each meeting, remember, we got here last time and now we're trying to go there, or this is where we are in our institutional life cycle. This is why something makes sense now that wouldn't make sense later. Lots and lots of communication. And I think what I've learned from all of that is that it's kind of the whole you that pours into the job of running a nonprofit, so that everything that you learn in all the other parts of your life enables you to empathize, communicate well, and get the best possible results out of a true and meaningful partnership with the board.
Well, a follow-up question really has to do with the pace of change. For each of you, really, what have been the obstacles to change that you faced from inside the organization?
They've been many. Lack of money, lack of vision, a belief on the part of most of the staff that nothing could ever change, a belief on the part of most of the staff that any change would be disrespectful to the kind of 19th century model of a natural history museum, a bureaucratic culture that was very top-down, riddled with sort of bakshish, so you had these bureaucracies, but the way you got things done was you made offline partnerships. It was everything. It was like, oh my God, where to begin? So you just start chipping away at it. And through a combination of really intense communications and work to bring people on the same page, new hires, people leaving, over time, and for me, really, I stopped being frantic about the pace of change after year 8. Over a period of time, you start getting an institution that seems like, oh my God, this place can fly, and it just happens.
We talked about how hard it is when you've got an existing team that may be kind of C+ players, and it's hard to recruit A players to a C+ team. Do you have any thoughts about that?
They won't come. No A person is going to bet their career on an institution where the CEO has a dream. It's not happening. You've really got to go from D to C, from C to B, from B to A. There's just no shortcuts. And you have to be willing.
The news business, I spent 10 years where 8 minutes was a long time. and we were judged by how we did every 8 minutes. And to be in the nonprofit sector where you have an idea and then you go to a funder with an idea and then there's a year until you can make your idea happen and then a year until you can report on it, you hear the tone. But, I was lucky a few years ago working with Mayor Reardon. He kept saying, you can't swing at every ball. And you have to treat this like a marathon. And I hear his words now and again. Because I want everything yesterday. Because in my world, there are so many crisis issues facing people on the ground across this region, and I heard
they're having that network of trusted people to turn to where you can say, this is what I'm experiencing. What have you done? Sometimes it just helps to be able to tell somebody in a way that is unthreatening. Another question?
The man gets to ask a question.
All
of you are. What are you doing or what have you done to ensure what you've got started can be sustained?
We're not going to take this as a question about our age. But it's just really
to say yes to almost everything I'm asked to do. So next year, I'm going to be leading another group, which you all get emails about, that has something to do with philanthropy. That's going to be just a minor activity, but I can't say no.